I was married for 11 years. Then I found her second phone. 11 years of marriage. 2 kids. A house we worked hard to afford. My name is James, and I thought I knew my wife, Natalie. We weren't perfect, but who is? I worked. She raised the kids, ran her photography business from home. We shared dinners, weekend errands, school plays. I thought we were happy, until the night I found a second phone under the driver's seat of her car. It wasn't locked. That alone felt like a slap. Like she didn't even care if I saw. Messages. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. A name I didn't recognize. Photos. Late night plans. A hotel receipt. I stared at the screen while my hands shook. She had another life. And I had no idea. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I placed the phone on the table and waited. When she came in, I said, "You dropped something." She froze. Then sat. Then lied. At first. Then the tears came. And then the truth. She'd met him at a workshop 2 years ago. He listened, she said. He saw me. As if I hadn't been trying to hold this whole family together. I didn't leave that night. I slept on the couch. She cried upstairs. The next day, I made the kids breakfast. Pretended nothing had changed. Because for them it couldn't. Not yet. I needed time. Not to forgive her, but to remember who I was before I gave up all of myself to this marriage. She said it like a secret. I didn't plan for her to go this far. I believed her, but that didn't make it better. She tried to hug me. I flinched, because she hadn't touched me in months. And now she was reaching because she had something to lose. Not because she missed me. We tried therapy. 3 sessions. 1 couch. She cried. I stayed quiet. The therapist asked what I needed. I said, I don't know yet. Because I didn't. All I knew was I felt hollow. And tired. And strangely free. Like something had snapped. And all the pieces were falling back into me. We sat with the kids. She passed the mashed potatoes. I smiled. She smiled. But underneath the surface, we were actors. Keeping the peace. Playing parts. Our daughter asked if we were going on vacation this summer. Natalie hesitated. I answered, "We'll figure it out." But I already knew the answer. I wasn't taking this show on the road. I started lying too. Work is fine. We're doing okay. She's just stressed. But every night, I knew I was sleeping next to a stranger. And worse, I was pretending for the kids. They deserved truth. But not yet. I still didn't know what that truth looked like. I helped her carry gear to a wedding shoot. She smiled at me in front of clients. Gripped my hand like we were still us. But when I looked through the lens, all I saw was someone who already had both feet out the door and didn't even realize I wasn't following. I started writing. Not poetry. Not memoir. Just things I couldn't say aloud. Entries filled with questions, ache, silent rage. And 1 page that said simply, "You matter," even if she forgot. I didn't know who I was writing to, but it felt like a beginning. There was a room in our house we stopped going into. Not literally. Emotionally. The room where we made promises. Where she said forever, and I believed her. Now, it was just the place we passed by, like the marriage itself. Occupied, but empty. Then came a message that broke me. I checked the second phone again. I knew I shouldn't have, but I did. A new message. Can't wait to see you again. Last night felt right. Timestamp. 2 days after therapy. I sat down on the floor. Not because I was weak, but because I couldn't stand being strong for 1 more minute. I stood in front of the mirror. I looked myself in the eyes. You're not a backup plan. You are not invisible. I said it 3 times. Out loud. Like a spell. And maybe it was. Because when I walked out of the bathroom, I didn't feel like a ghost anymore. The quiet drive. I drove around aimlessly one evening. Windows down. No music. Just the sound of wind and my own breath. I passed places we used to go. The diner where we had our first date. The park where we walked with strollers. They didn't hurt. They felt like echoes. Like a life I'd visited but didn't live in anymore. One day, I found a letter in her desk. Unsent. Addressed to him. It wasn't passionate. It was worse, familiar. The way she used to write to me. Plans. Inside jokes. Her fears. Everything she used to give me, now offered to someone else. I put it back without a word. But inside, something closed. Firmly. The kids' questions really hurt. They broke me inside in the way I really can't explain. Why don't you and Mommy laugh anymore? It was my son. 6 years old. I knelt down, kissed his forehead, and lied. Sometimes grown-ups get tired. That's all. He nodded like he understood, but I saw it in his eyes. He already knew, and that broke me more than any letter ever could. The pillow wall became our constant. We started sleeping back to back. Sometimes a pillow between us. Sometimes a whole galaxy. No more good nights. Just lights off, silence, breathing. Like roommates waiting for a lease to end. We had a dinner guest. Her sister came over. I watched Natalie laugh. Big, loud, effortless. A laugh I hadn't heard in months. And it wasn't for me. It hadn't been for a long time. That night, I sat in the garage. Just sat. Because it was the only place left where I didn't feel watched. Or unwanted. That was it, a final straw. I wrote my boss an email. Subject line, possible relocation. Didn't send it, but I reread it 3 times. It felt like the start of something. Or the end. And maybe both were necessary. She left the phone on the counter again. It buzzed. A call. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. He left a voicemail. I didn't listen. Because I already knew. And knowing was enough. One day, I met an old friend for coffee. Someone who knew me before marriage, before kids. He looked me in the eye and asked, "Are you okay?" And for the first time in months, I said no. And it felt like honesty had oxygen in it. I pulled my suitcase down from the closet shelf. Not to pack. Just to remember what it felt like to hold something that belonged only to me. And in that quiet, dusty moment, I realized I could leave. Not out of anger, but out of love. For myself. The next morning, I made coffee. She came downstairs, said nothing. I handed her a cup. We sat in silence. Not tense. Not hostile. Just 2 people coexisting in the absence of what used to be. And I wasn't afraid of it anymore. The lawyer. I didn't want to fight. Just clarity. I booked a consultation. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. The lawyer was kind. Asked me what I wanted. Peace, I said. And time with my kids. He nodded like that was more than reasonable. Because it was. I packed 1 box. Books. A few clothes. My journals. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to start being me again. And as I taped it shut, I whispered, "You did everything you could. Now, do something for yourself." It wasn't a declaration. It was a promise. I sat her down. Told her I was leaving. No shouting. No drama. Just truth. She didn't cry. She looked relieved, and then ashamed of that relief. I said, "You don't need to explain anymore." "I know." She nodded. Quiet. Still. And that was our ending. I signed a short-term lease. A 1-bedroom. Half the size of the house. But it had sunlight, clean walls, space. My own name on the mailbox. It felt like breathing. Like stepping into the life I abandoned, trying to hold everything together. And I didn't regret it. Not for a second. The first night alone, I made spaghetti. Ate on the couch. No TV. No noise. Just me. And the absence of pretending. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like beginning. And I realized I wasn't grieving her. I was finding me. On Sunday morning, the kids visited. We made pancakes. They laughed. Asked about my tiny apartment. Drew pictures for the fridge. When they left, I didn't cry. I cleaned up quietly. Folded their drawings. Placed them gently on the counter. Because even in this small space, I had room for love. She sent an email. Long, thoughtful. No excuses. Just an apology. "I lost myself," she wrote. "And then I lost you." I didn't respond right away. Because forgiveness isn't fast. But I knew I'd find it eventually. Not for her. For me. The morning I knew. I woke up. Stretched. Felt still. No pain. No questions. Just peace. I looked around the room, and I smiled. Because I wasn't waiting anymore. I was living. And that was everything I needed. I took a walk to the park. Sat on the same bench I once took my daughter to as a toddler. A little boy ran past. Laughed the way she used to. I watched without aching. Not because it didn't matter, but because I had made peace with the past. I had kept the parts of it worth keeping. And released the rest. I wrote her back. Nothing dramatic. Just, "I know. And I forgive you. We both lost parts of ourselves in trying to save what had already gone." She replied, "Thank you. Truly." No more words were needed. Closure isn't loud. It's quiet. Still. Whole. I stood before the mirror one morning. Same man. Same lines around the eyes. But I looked different. I looked present. I looked enough, and for the first time in years, I believed it. I believed in me. This isn't a story of revenge, or destruction, or rage. It's a story of survival, of rediscovery, of a man who gave everything, lost too much, and chose, finally, to give something back to himself. It's not a happy ending. It's something better, an honest one.
Thank you for listening. If this story moved you, consider subscribing for more emotional, true-style stories like this one. Every week, we share new moments of heartbreak, healing, and the quiet strength behind second chances.